Okay, we apparently do have a quorum. There are the empty seats there, and one over there. But they are doing this remote. And that is Kim Golder and Eric Garoff that will be attending in that way.
Another Cecil Cummings.
Cecil Cummings on?
That's Eric.
That's Eric Groff.
I'm sorry.
Hi, Eric.
I think Cecil Don.
I thought he was going to.
No, it's not attorney.
Yep, we're having fun. Okay, we had a little shakeup at the last meeting. Our chair announced that they would be resigning as they were moving out of the city. So before we get started on this, we're going to want to take a vote for a new chair. Now, I am the vice chair. That means nothing as far as ascension. Mr. Scott over there, who is well-versed in the process and very knowledgeable, is also willing to take the seat. I would be happy either way, and I think Mr. Scott would also agree with that. So we'd like to get a vote here, and how are we going to do that for the remotes? They raise their hand? Okay. Theoretically, no. No, we have not actually, but you want to do the roll first? Let's do the roll first. Okay, we'll revise that. Okay. Wilfred Scott.
Present.
Kimberly Golder. She's remote.
We can only see Eric right now.
You said you have Kim Golder?
We need to be able to hear her.
Camera's not on, she's not on, so at this point I don't know yet.
Okay, then she is not present now. Brendan Greeley.
Present.
Cecile Cummings. Not present. Mary Bannon.
Present.
Thank you. And Eric Ruff. I'm sorry, I hope I pronounced that correctly. We can see he's here. Can you hear us, Eric?
You need to ask him again.
Eric?
Yeah, I couldn't hear anything.
Okay, you're back.
It's very spotty.
You can't hear? Can you hear us now?
Is your mic on?
No, audio's not working.
Okay, audio's not working there. We can hear you. So how do we deal with that point? He can hear us.
Okay, we can hear you.
No, he can't hear us. He
I'm
can't.
starting to hear it now again.
Okay, he just said so he's starting to hear it now. Would you change something that he was working?
Okay, well, I think we can, for now, agree Eric is with us, which gives us a
I can
quorum.
hear you now.
Okay.
Okay. So that gives us a quorum, and before we go further, we want to take a vote, as I said a minute ago, for chair. As I was saying, Mr. Scott is well qualified. And is anyone else wanting to take that position of chair? Okay. With that one, let's vote on Mr. Scott or I. And like I say, I'm flexible either way. I'm not going to leave you, don't worry.
Hello, I'm sorry, can you hear me? This is Kim Golder.
Yeah, we got you now, Kim.
Okay, I was trying to nominate, if he hasn't already been, nominated Will.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, so we have Will
So
nominated.
I'm driving, so I cannot turn my camera on at this time. I cannot turn my camera on at this time. Okay, sorry. Okay.
Okay, is there anyone else to be nominated, or would you like to go straight to a vote? Motion? Anyone? Motion for vote?
I'll motion for vote.
Second? Let's take the vote of one candidate. Shall we say aye?
Aye.
Aye. You get stuck in this seat. We'll get up here. We'll get up here. Sir.
Do we,
I'm not responding anymore.
a question for the chair?
Yes.
Do we retain Bill as vice, or do we need to nominate him and vote him as well?
Mr. Williams is the vice chair.
Okay.
He remains the vice chair now
Super
that this
easy.
position, yes, which I think will be a benefit for all. So, thank you for,
If you want to impeach me, it is an option, and I wouldn't blame you.
well, the chair would have to accept a motion to impeach now, so that won't happen. All right, well, thank you for your confidence in my ability to lead the commission, and I promise to act within the best interests of the community of Annapolis in doing so. We have had the roll, and we've had the vote, and now we'll move on to our normal procedures of business. And let's see, I think the next item of business would be the approval of minutes for the meeting of September 10th, 2024. Has everyone who's been on the commission at that time had a chance to review the minutes?
Yes.
Are there any comments or changes to the minutes as drafted?
No.
Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
Motion seconded?
Motion made and seconded. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Aye. The minutes are approved. Since the only item that's on our agenda tonight is the application by the city for amendments to the previously approved plan for the so-called park as part of the city dock renewal, I'd like to go ahead and call the representatives of the city forward and have them make their presentation.
Will, before they begin, since everyone's getting settled, usually there were announcements and violations that are spoken about before we hear.
John, I appreciate that, and I want to hear that.
Okay.
But given that almost everybody who's communicated with us, and I think most of the public that are present want to speak to this, I'm going to make an exception if the other commissioners agree to that. Okay, then. I think we all know each other pretty well after a number of prior meetings, but I would ask Ms. Fogarty, who I believe is the spokesperson, to introduce herself and the other members so that everyone present will know them.
Thank you very much and greetings. We're honored to be here, and we are delighted to have our new commission members. I will very briefly have our team, which is the City Dock team. It's both the city members, including our Public Works Director, as well as our construction and development team, introduce themselves. I'm Eileen Fogarty, City Dock Project Coordinator. To my left,
Vern Vogel, Public Works Director.
Scott Reichel from Mahan Reichel Associates Landscape Architecture.
Kim Dalyder from ESG Traceries, Historic Preservation Consultant.
Chris Holler, BCT Design Group, we're the architects for the project.
Thank you. Good to see you all again.
we also have in the audience Bryce Turner, who is architect from BCT, and Travis Lagone, who is the, from Whiting Turner, the overall project manager for the private sector.
Bryce has such a resonant speaking voice. Why isn't he going to say anything?
We will pull him up to the table just so that he can enjoy the evening with us.
Okay.
Should we get started?
Please begin.
Many of you, when I say many of you, the Historic Preservation Commission has been involved in this project for several years, has been a major aspect in shaping and directing the project. Tonight, we want to quickly share with you the approved site plan, which has been approved by both the Planning Commission and the Historic Preservation Commission. Also, where we are today in terms of the urgency of the project. Per Vogel is going to speak with you about the resiliency project and the funding. And then, most importantly, we will, Scott Reichel and Kim Dayleader will talk with you about the amendments, the cultural legacy concept, the electrical structures, the trash enclosures, the event stage, the pergola, and the fountain. The city dock site plan was approved this spring by both the Planning Commission and the Historic Preservation Commission. This is the approved plan. As you see on the plan, there is the stage, there is the fountain. The HPC asked after, when they approved this plan in the spring, to see more details on the fountain, on the event stage, to see the actual pergola, and certainly whatever the details as to the location for the cultural legacy concept, which will be woven throughout the park. Right now, all of you, particularly after this past weekend, are very well aware that we have seen really unprecedented flooding. We had a state of emergency in August where 19 of our businesses flooded, had to close. We're on pace this year for 120 flooding events. This past weekend, the entire weekend, we were flooded. The prior record only 5 years ago was 65 flooding events. So really, the message is the events, the flooding is not only becoming more severe, it's almost doubled in frequency. With that said, I would like Per Vogel to share with everybody the City Dock Resiliency Project, the elements of it, including the park and all the resilient barriers. Per?
Good evening, everyone. Going to try to get this mic close. So for those of you who are with us in February, this will be a refresher. And for those of you who are new, just going to be talking briefly about the functional aspects of the project and how they're integrated with the park. What you see is a reflection here of all the resilience barriers. Some of them, I'll start from the bottom and then go clockwise. And so in the bottom in blue, we're going to be constructing a new bulkhead to about elevation 5. And moving to the left, the orange section there, we'll be getting some post and planks so we can reach our target elevation of protection of 8. And then the next segment is yellow, and these will be active or passive flood barriers, meaning that they will float up out of the ground when needed. They float when water reaches that flood level. And then the pink section is the last section, and that is primarily fixed barriers. Think of knee walls, very small walls, 1 or 2 feet high, with openings in them that will have those passive flood barriers. Next slide, please. And just an overview of funding, a lot of detail here, and there's actually quite a bit of complexity that is not shown on this slide, but the overall summary is the cost of the City Dock construction project, everything from Donner Park across to the Dock Street areas and going up to Prince George Street, including the Maritime Welcome Center. That's all about $72 million, and we have $68 million of funding identified for that portion of the project.
Thanks.
Thank you so much, Burr. Scott Reichel, who is our lead landscape architect and has designed the park, will now share with you the 4 elements upon which you will be reviewing this evening and taking action on. Scott?
So just as a refresher, what you see outlined in green is the approved site plan. And that's the area that is under discussion. That's the area within the area. So we'll go to the next slide. The areas in bright green are actually the only areas that we'll be talking about tonight. And they include the trash enclosure, the 2 electrical pergolas, the fountain, which is the large circle of green, and then the pergola itself, which is just to the right of the fountain. And then just an easier plan, if you're not used to reading plans, is to look at it in 3D. Those utility pergolas are there at the bottom left of your screen. The interactive fountain is in the center. The pergola stage is up at the top of the slide, and then the trash enclosure is just off this to the lower left. It's in the parking lot, actually. So as many of you know, there's a cultural legacy committee that we've been meeting with for, I think, over 2 years now, and we've been trying to integrate historic Annapolis and the history and the industriousness of the city dock. And the idea is that we want to bring that past back, so in this new modern contemporary park, we'll see what the city dock once was. And at the suggestion, actually, of one of the members of the Historic Commission, we went back and looked at Sanborn maps, and we settled on the 1894 Sanborn map, which I'll talk about. This is it, and you can see the area that we're talking about, the city dock. There were several buildings. There were actually tenements that were in Dock Street. These were all oyster packing houses for the most part. There was a lumber yard there where Donner Park is. And you can see actually there was another market at the dinghy dock just on the other side of that. So as a kicking off point, we thought, well, where would they lie in the current design? So they're outlined in red here, and we realized ghosting them would not be prudent into the design. And you can also see that the outline of Ego Alley change as well as the end of City Dock. You can see that if you follow the red, there's been a lot of fill that's happened over the years. So what we're talking about doing is actually creating a smaller granite inlaid map that would be that 1894 Sanborn map. So you'd actually be able to look at it in plan and key in where you are on the plan. And then where the buildings were on the site, actually key those in as well. And it would either be with verbiage like on the risers of the steps, or we may actually have lines and say, inscribe them and say, this is in 1897, this is where the Colored Union oyster packing house was. So this is the one utility pergola, and the idea is we're trying to create a sort of a living outdoor museum, and we're in the middle of selecting photographs, maps, historic maps that will, remind people of how industrial the city dock was, that there were people working here. This was where a lot of people made their livelihoods, and how the dock has changed over the years, what the shape of the Ego Alley has changed with maps and things like that. And we are using the sides of the pergola, which they open up to access the electrical, but this is a great way to display these older photographs and maps.
Chris.
So another big part of the project is the electrical consolidation of all the different electrical needs that are down here at City Dock. You know, it's an operating marina. It hosts two of the largest boat shows every October. And it also hosts countless little festivals and songwriters festivals, things like that. And there's a lot of electrical infrastructure. This slide here kind of shows on the right-hand side the boat show, and you can see how that tent that's kind of further back in the upper right is almost where the edge of the land is, and they actually build all those floating piers out into Spa Creek, and then they need the electrical infrastructure to be able to power all those boats. And then there's a shot of the Songwriter Festival on the left-hand side there. We originally had thought that we could consolidate all of the electrical service equipment into a single building, kind of at the end of Prince George Street, as shown here. Unfortunately, there were a couple of boundaries preventing us from doing that. We can't build within 10 feet of the U.S. Naval Academy fence, and those blue lines on the ground actually represent a large 16-inch water main that's under the ground there that's going to have to be replaced at some point. So it just didn't work out that we would be able to put all the electrical service equipment that we needed over in this location. So what we decided was to incorporate some smaller buildings into the site plan where we already had. You can see one over at the stage, which is on the right-hand side, that small yellow building. And then one in the upper left-hand corner of the slide here is a larger building that we're incorporating another shade structure into that active park. The materials that we're proposing to use are all natural or authentic materials: glass, wood, stone, steel. So you could kind of see in the upper middle there is a wood siding system that will be the main material for the buildings themselves. And then the rest of the materials are kind of forming the structure, the trellis structures above. So this is the active park structure. This houses 6 electrical services. They're all the 120, 240 volt single phase services that serve all the marina pedestals. So really this building is there specifically to kind of energize all of the existing pedestals around Ego Alley. It will also provide some lighting and some convenience outlets as well.
Excuse me, two quick questions. One for clarification. And that is the site you were thinking about near the Naval Academy wall. That's just completely out. There are too many difficulties to allow any use of that space.
Well, that space is going to be used, we'll talk about that at another presentation, but there is planned to be a park at the end of Prince George Street.
But it can't be used for this electrical.
We can't really put electrical infrastructure there that might have to be ripped out in the future in order to replace that water main.
And just for clarification, the 2 small structures that you pointed out, could they be located elsewhere without great expense and difficulty?
I suppose they could be located kind of anywhere within the park, but we chose these locations strategically because of certain factors. This one sits where the existing Harbor Master building is currently located, and it's kind of at the entrance to the park, and it creates a nice little shaded area. The other one being at the stage itself where we already had a structure planned. So it kind of made sense to put them in those locations.
Thanks.
So this is the location of the trash enclosure in the upper left. You can see that plan. It's really like the first stall of the canoe of parking that's in the center of Dock Street, that parking lot. And it's just a simple wood frame, wood clad, I should say, trash enclosure. This is the pergola event stage. You can see the utility closet is off to the left. The we use materials to evoke the maritime industry by using wood joists, wood decking, wood cladding of the electrical closets, and then this actually is covered, so this has a glass cover, so it'll be rainproof, where the other one is not. So you can see here, it's about 13.6 that the beam around the outside is about 18 inches. And what's nice about the pergola, if you don't know the plan well, is that it actually works. So it's meant to be used day to day. There'll be tables and chairs up there for people to go have picnic lunches or whatever. But when there's an event, it is great because it can perform either way. So you can perform to Susan Campbell Park, or you can perform to the back to the main green space. This is a view. Ego Alley's to the right. There's steps up to the pergola. You see the pergola there on the left, and you're looking out across Susan Campbell. And this is an aerial view showing you that you do step up to the pergola. And now we'll take you through view sheds. For the entire project, we had probably 20 of these. We've limited these to just the elements that we'll be looking at tonight. So I'll take you through them as we go. So this is the view from Dock Street. You're looking back out to down Ego Alley and out to the park. That's the current view. This will be the view when the park is designed. This is from the water's edge looking across to Susan Campbell Park. And this will be that view. And you can see, you barely see the pergola is there way to the right of this shot. This is looking back. So my back is to the water. I'm looking down across Susan Campbell. And this will be that view. So we've moved the trees from the center of the space to the outside of the space, and now you've got an open lawn there. And then this is looking back at Susan Campbell again from the parking lot, and this is be that view. This is now looking. You're further into the parking lot, looking out to Susan Campbell. You see the birds, the existing bird's nest on the right. And this is the new view with the proposed fountain and the pergola beyond. This is looking at the promenade, Ego Alley's to the right. You can see the bird's nest to the left. This is the current view. That's the proposed view. And this is looking back at Susan Campbell from the water view, and you can see the State House in the distance. And that's the view that you'll have from the water. So now we'll talk about the interactive fountain. To the left, this is just what you had seen before. So that was the location, size, it hasn't changed. You can see this was a placeholder. We were just showing jets. It's now been designed, and I'll take you through that design now to share those details with you, to share the concept. So just to tell you that the fountain was designed by a renowned fountain designer, they're Fluidity, they're out of Los Angeles. We've worked with them before on fountains, and they do wonderful fountains. They presented multiple concepts. It was chosen that we would do the underwater theme and pick up on the seabed patterns, underwater scenic character of the bay. And then if you go to the next one, so we would do the paving that would evoke patterns of that underwater element. And then the fountains themselves would move like seagrasses do with the tide. And you'll see, we don't have an animation, but you'll see that the fountains will go, the water jets actually raise and lower and move in the same motion of as if water were flowing over them. So this is a view of that. The upper right is the pattern of the paving inside the fountain itself. And then the jets, you see there are a series of arches, and what they do is they ebb and flow, basically. They're up and down, and what's fun about it, I mean, one, it'll be a beautiful fountain. At night, it'll be spectacular, and this is what you'll see year-round. And but what's fun about it is the way they've designed it is actually children will be able to go into the fountain. There's actually dry spaces, so parents could actually stand in the middle of the fountain and stay dry while their kids are playing in the fountain. And this is what we'd love to see happening. And this is the view of that fountain.
So it's our belief that with these items, we continue to comply with the Annapolis Historic District design guidelines. The city dock conforms to the urban form and enhances a blight on the city dock that is there right now, being just a parking lot. It is enhancing views by removing trees from the center. I realize that there are going to be trees, but as people have established prior, the views to and from the water at Annapolis have continually changed over the last 400 years. So I think that improving the views to the water from this new park is enhancing, the community feel and the value of the land. And then the landscape and site design continue to comply with the guidelines under Section C. As stated before, all of the brick will be laid in one of the 5 acceptable patterns. The curb cuts are minimal and are only for emergency egress. The design and the materials used in the new elements discussed today are all natural and are taken from kind of the boating industry. And they're wood, they're steel, they're clean glass. Nothing is really standing out as too obvious or in the way. I believe it all blends well. It's compatible and complementary to the surrounding historic district.
Thanks very much. So before you this evening, for your discussion and review, are the cultural legacy concept, the electrical structure and the trash enclosure, the pergola, which is the event stage, and the interactive fountain. The next steps after your review and approval will be the text and images for the cultural legacy concepts. They will go before the Heritage Commission, and they will also come back to the Historic Preservation Commission. The archaeology for the city dock has, the contract has been initiated, and the archaeology investigation will take place over the next several months. And then, after that, we will have the resiliency project construction. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Fogarty, and members of the team for your presentation. Just for clarification, we've had a number of meetings where we reviewed this part of the city dock plan. Do you want to take pains to specify what's different, or are you telling us that what we saw earlier were preliminary plans? This is the final plan for all of these elements, and you're asking for us to approve that this evening?
Let me very quickly share with you the approved plan, and then you will be able to see the distinctions. Just one sec.
Okay, that would be very helpful, I think. John.
Here is the approved plan. The items in yellow are the areas that were part of the approved plan in terms of the fountain and the stage, but there is more detail on the fountain and the stage. The footprint was approved, but what you're seeing tonight is the actual pergola. The utility pergola in the left-hand corner, that item is new.
Thank you. I was afraid that I had been dozing during earlier meetings. John, did you want to say something?
Well, we don't have anything for the Donner lot, and we approve that also.
Thank you.
So I just want to make sure that we understand there's more that has been approved than just what we're seeing there. The Donner lot is very much part of the approval.
Okay.
Yes, everything you see here, the resiliency, the Donner lot, everything in this image was part of the initial approval by both the Planning Commission and the Historic Preservation Commission.
Correct.
So is there any cultural legacy that is going to be part of the Donner lot design?
At this point, the cultural legacy is anticipated for the locations we've shown, which are in the main park. At the future, if there is a desire to put any elements or to start the walk over there, that would come back. I'll give this to Scott.
I think our intent is to, it's not been designed yet, but we would have actually markers where the lumber yard was at Donner Park, and say this was the point at this marker, and that they'll key into that map that's at the center. So we will have that marker will marker the old market house that was at Dinghy Dock, probably as well.
Okay. Okay. Do members of the commission have questions for clarification on the presentation? Brendan.
I just have a quick question for the chair. Are we advising tonight or are we approving tonight?
We will plan to vote and approve what they've presented.
Okay. I have 2 questions for the city. This has come up in the past when we've been responding to this plan. So 2 related questions. One is, on the pergola on the stage, it doesn't seem like it casts any shade. And given that that was one of the public responses, that the need for shade, it seems like it should cast shade, particularly if people are going to be using it sort of outside of events. I can see it being a nice place to sit and have lunch. So I'm wondering if there's a plan or an option to have that be shaded instead of clear?
Yes, the idea would be that the glass would be frosted or would have some kind of pattern that would provide some diffuse shading. It wouldn't be fully shaded, but it would block most of the sun's rays.
Okay, so like something you could eat under in July.
Right.
That what?
You could sit under in July.
Oh, yeah.
It's got a shade coefficient.
Willingly sit under in July.
Yes,
And then
correct.
This is also a question that has come up in the past when we were responding to this, which is you've got 2 pergolas and they don't look alike. One of them looks like you've taken a lot of thought to create a shape that could be a hull or a sail, or that sort of interpretively, I see what's happening there. The other one looks, and I think somebody else said this last time this came before the commission, Mediterranean. So I'm wondering why those 2 pergolas don't carry the same design.
It's really because the uses are so different. I mean, this really is a performance, it's meant to be a performance stage as well. It's set up. The other one really was, it's the same footprint as the old Harbor Master building. Well, not same footprint, it's much smaller, but the idea was that we thought, I mean, we looked at it, we think it's better all wood as opposed to the metal that we're using here. The metal we're using here is really a structural issue that we can't get the spans. So
Could you make it wood, but give it something of the rounded edges that other shape has? It just seems odd that they're 2 buildings that don't seem part of a consistent design whole.
we could certainly make, I think we could do the beams and posts in wood here, right?
Yeah, right now what you're seeing on the screen is a combination of steel and wood, kind of reminiscent of what's happening at the stage, but you're right, it's in a different configuration. We do have steel columns, and the major beams are steel, but then we've got the lattice work of wood above it. Originally, when we presented this, we had, we were showing a polycarbonate roof on top of this and on top of the stage, and we were, told that the polycarbonate was not an approved material. We went to glass, but it was discussed at the time that we would do a more traditional trellis type design for this this structure, which is when we added the purlins on the very top made out of wood. So it was based on some discussions and some comments we had received in the past.
And I don't think we wanted it to look like a mini-me of the stage is such a different use that this really is more of a shade structure. We actually we have planters at the base of it to get vines to grow up, and it really becomes a different type of pergola. But we could certainly look at, somehow, I see what you mean in terms of shape.
Yeah, I don't want to make a request that's not the sense of the commission. It had come up in one of our meetings in the past.
Yes. Oh, I think this is the kind of discussion we should be having at this point, but I appreciate that if you don't feel that it's a thing that would cause them to actually change their design, because that would mean they'd have to come back to us again before we could offer approval. So. New commissioners and those who are attending remotely should feel free to ask questions if they feel prepared to do so.
If I could,
We're still struggling to hear you. Can you hear us? It looks like it's
frozen.
Frozen.
if I may,
Yes, please.
this is Eric Groff. I'm new to this process. I've the park plan. I've been to a couple of public meetings in and around Annapolis, so I'm somewhat familiar. But being new to this process, I hope I'm not going back on a couple of items. First thing, as a landscape architect, I want to commend Scott and the design team. It's a very tight set of drawings, and I know how difficult it is to coordinate something like that. So I applaud that effort. But I do have I felt this from the first presentation I went to maybe a year, 2 years ago. I guess my question is, what makes this park?
It's frozen again. Oh,
Can you not hear me?
Now we can.
we can hear you.
My question is, what makes this park and these details that we're looking at, what makes it Annapolis? What makes it the Chesapeake Bay, and what makes it Maryland? It seems to be quite a pleasant park, but to me it feels like a park that could be almost anywhere, not necessarily in the town that I've lived most of my adult life in. So I guess materiality seems to be okay. I think I applaud the effort to use fluidity. I think they do incredible fountains, and I think some of the nuances that I saw in the fountain, I'd like to see carried out in some of the detailing of the pergolas, paving, materiality, and steps. I think if we rely too much on maps and plaques in public spaces, it's kind of to me it's not enough. How are we recalling the industrial nature of this site rather than just having interpretive plaques? Also, my other comment is, while I think it's a good thing that you've pushed the trees to the side, I'm just thinking about shade. I mean, this is one hell of a hot area, and those open lawn areas are great for big events, but how are people going to get, where are people going to get shade? It seems like there's more opportunities for an occasional tree here and there, or maybe double rows on the sides. I'm just really worried about the amount of shade in these vast open spaces.
Thank you very much.
Ms. Fogarty? Just a minute. Eric, because you haven't been part of the commission and attending the hearings and reviews that we've had, all of those issues, I think we very much appreciate you raising and addressing. A lot of those have been discussed extensively, and of course, it's understandable you weren't at those. But what I would like to do is ask Ms. Fogarty, because we have another joint session coming up with the Planning Commission, which you and the rest of us on this commission will participate in. Will any of these issues be addressed in greater detail, or can you respond to these concerns in some way in that next meeting?
They will not be discussed at the meeting that we're having next week. That is not the topic for the meeting next week. I can quickly respond, and Scott and Burr Vogel are also available to respond to the comments on the cultural legacy. What we did not do this evening was share the background, and I certainly apologize for that. Cultural legacy team was headed by Chris Haley, and was a group of people who really discussed how they wanted the history of really industriousness of a whole variety of ethnic groups. They were particularly interested in the Greek community, the African American community, the indigenous community, the Jewish community, and again, as a representative of the Irish community, the Irish are always thrown in there as well. But these groups were the groups they wanted to represent. There are a couple of things that will be going on. There will be the detailed information throughout the park, the images that will be on the structure that you saw, fairly vibrant images, but there is also an art feature that is going to be in the, let me see if I can get a good site plan. Well, it will be in the upper right-hand corner on this plan, basically to the left of the bow of that boat. And that will be something that the art community and Annapolitans will participate in creating. Scott?
Okay, wait, please. I'd like to ask the council a question. Because the commissioner making these observations and really requests for information, is it proper for Ms. Fogarty or a member of the team to speak to those questions with him directly outside this session?
No, I don't think that would be appropriate. However, he could be directed, Commissioner could be directed to listen to some of the previous meetings. Are they available?
Oh,
Are they available? Sorry. Let me repeat what I said. So I believe the commissioner could be directed to listen to some of the previous sessions, which I believe are recorded on YouTube.
I would ask that that be facilitated. So these are great questions, but we have spent extensive amounts of time talking about them, and I would feel that it would make everybody better informed with us going forward if those were made available easily to the commissioner. Okay, is that satisfactory at this time, Eric?
Sure.
Okay, thank you very much for your...
I do have a question. Was
Yes.
there and this is again my naivete, was there a cultural landscape report done for this, for City Dock?
Yes.
Yes.
I didn't hear what he said.
Okay.
Yes. Okay, wait a minute.
So that can be sent to him.
Yes, that can be sent to him also. Okay. Please, commissioners, remember that what we're trying to do is clarify the presentation that was made before we hear the report of staff. So we'll have discussion following the report of the staff. Okay? Any other clarifying questions for the staff and the team? Bill?
One thing that I have do not believe I've really seen really addressed is lighting, and night lighting specifically, which is going to change the entire look of the facility. The only lighting I have seen is in the fountains. Looking at the renderings, I haven't seen or haven't noticed any lights represented either by pole or monument or anything else. I assume someplace out there is lighting, and it's not just underneath the pavilions.
We're using the historic fixtures that are in Annapolis. They are in some of the rendering, I believe. I'm not sure which views, but they're definitely, I know for a fact, the one looking down Ego Alley, you see the fixture in the renderings, in those views.
Mm-hmm.
John, have you attended to that issue and referred to that or considered
That's
it?
right there. Go back.
I know what the, if we're talking about the lights that are on Main Street and within the historic district with the tobacco leaf on top, yes. I mean, they're all around us.
This is the view.
Okay.
There's
Right, we're using that historic fixture as a perimeter around the site, and then there's also some taller poles within the center of the park, within some of the planters that are 25 feet or 30 feet tall, that will have multiple heads shining down.
You could see one in a previous
What I was
slide.
looking for.
You could see one in a previous slide. Go back.
Yeah.
Slowly.
No.
Keep going. Keep going. What? I mean, they don't really stand out.
there's one.
Right.
On the left
On the
there.
left.
That's
Right.
one of the historic fixtures.
That's
Oh,
the
you mean at
historic
the
one.
far left?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
And you
again,
can see
that's
they're in
at
the,
parking lot itself. That's what is in the park. There's the
Well,
park is
those
fairly large.
are in the perimeter, and as Chris said, we have these large posts that are basically, they disappear. They only really are meant to be for events, and you can dim them. So it's basically like a moonlighting effect that you'll get, but they are not in the renderings.
Bill, are you asking if they're like
Well,
set into the paving and that sort of thing?
Well, it's low level.
Yeah.
I would like to see more in your tall lights. Relatively, you're saying they're 13, 14 feet, but don't want it to look like a parking lot out there. And if we, I was expecting something of a glow down low, so when people walk out at night, the lights aren't dumping on them. If they're walking up to it, they don't get the glare of high lights, everything's down low, and they maintain their night vision so that they can see the view from the park and around the park safely. And right now, we have perimeter lighting, which is a nice walk at night, but the perimeter lighting only reaches so far in. So I don't know, low bollards, low mounts.
We could do.
If I may, if I may.
Please introduce yourself first.
Travis Lagon, a member of the design build team here. With the original site plan, it's the numbers were provided on one of the slides you saw earlier. In that site plan, one of the requirements that the city has with that submission is a photometrics plan. What that does, for those who aren't familiar, the photometrics plan analyzes the lighting levels available literally within every square foot of the entire footprint of this park. The city has a very generous standard for minimum lighting levels. That plan was approved. It does comply with all of those codes. What we're approving tonight certainly has nothing to do with lighting at all, but as a point of clarification, we're not approving renderings, we're approving plans, and the plan that went through the process back in the spring that was referred to, it has a substantial amount of detail on all of those light fixtures, in addition to the photometric study that is the result of the amount of light that's available at ground level throughout the entirety of the park.
Thank you. Bill, does that help?
Okay, and that was presented at one of the meetings earlier?
Yes, sir, that's correct. It's in the site development package that was the subject of the spring
I'll go back and
hearings
look at
that was approved.
Okay. Do look at it if you have questions. Yeah. Okay. Yes?
I have a few questions.
If that green light has to be illuminated, that little green light.
Okay. I just have a few questions about the fountain, and this is my first meeting as well, so excuse me if you've already covered this. Obviously, the seasons here don't allow for the fountain to be on all the time. So could you just discuss the plan for what it will be in the off-season?
It's basically a plaza, and that's the reason we are detailing the paving pattern. So it'll be it's not like just it actually has an interesting paving pattern and the base of it, and it becomes an open plaza basically.
So people can walk across
Like
it?
walk across it.
Okay. And is the lighting something that is wrapped into the fountain, or has the lighting been discussed, those different colored lights and things like that?
Fluidity does have a lighting package that accompanies, and the lights are at the base of these arc jets, pretty much. So it I think it has the ability to go color, but I think right now it's all white. I think, with the lighting that is out there now, it's like a flip of a switch to change colors if you'd like it, but.
Okay, I was just reacting to your picture.
You're right.
It had very like Disneyland lighting.
Yeah, this is all
Okay.
white light.
Okay, and there's an option, I presume, to turn off the lighting if you just don't want the lighting?
Right.
Okay. And how wide is that
It's 45 feet.
from the water feature or the whole?
The diameter of that inner circle from the bench, the dark gray.
Wow, okay.
Good.
Okay. And then a question about I'm kind of piggybacking on what Eric said about making it look like Annapolis, and I understand the main stage sort of looks like a sail maybe, but did you all consider or would consider sails? You know how so many parks have those triangular sails that they actually can just put up and take down very easily to provide shade? That seems like a very Annapolis thing that would maybe tie in more to actually Annapolis.
I think we did, and one of the issues, we were very cognizant of views. And the more you change the plane, the more you block. So by doing a very flat linear pergola, we were trying to preserve the views across the park and out to the water.
But those can be hung flat, like.
Well, they're usually,
stretched
but
tight.
usually they're at angles. It's rare that they're flat because you have to drain them, and you've got to, so they're usually a series of, and they're you have to clean them. There's issues with them. They have to be taken down. We also are accommodating the boat show here, so we have to be able to clear this, literally everything but the pergolas.
Right.
Out for the boat show.
Would there be an option on that big glass roof to break it into smaller components then?
I'm not sure.
Well, I'm just thinking the large glass surface.
Yeah.
Is that going to get very dirty and not that attractive when it's been up for a while? Like, is there an option to use a different material?
Well, I think, one, it's frosted, so you won't see a lot of dirt through it. I mean, there are going to be bird droppings and things like that, but when you get rains like this morning, they should wash that off. It is sloped slightly, so it does drain off, and that it should be relatively self-cleaning. I'm sure there's going to be issues at times where they have to get up over time and clean it, but the fact that it's frosted, the most you'd see is a silhouette of things. You're not going to look up and see a lot of bird droppings, I don't think.
And then I guess my last point is I think I read that the white metal was going to be painted, the posts. Is there an option to use material that didn't need to be painted or could be graffitied on or something? I know that some of the new roofing, metal roofing, they come colored and they don't need to be painted. Is that an option, or is that something that could be considered?
There's certainly other
Well, it's
finishes.
steel, and the steel could be left as a raw galvanized steel, but it would be like a silver,
Yeah.
mottled silver color. The concept was always the white, so in order to get that, you'd have to paint it. I guess you could probably powder coat it in small batches, the smaller elements, which is a more permanent cover than just paint. So yeah, we could look into that. But I think the white was something that we wanted more than the mottled silvery look of the galvanized raw steel.
But the rest of it is going to be weathered Ipe, right?
Right.
The rest of it will be, the siding on the electrical building will be Ipe.
So I'm just thinking the white is going to be visually busy compared
Excuse me,
to.
Mary,
We're
I
not
want to
discussing
extend.
materials.
I want to extend the greatest latitude I can to the new commissioners, and you're making good points. But these are things that have been discussed greatly,
Okay.
and at some of the things that you've raised, if they were to change, we'd have to continue this hearing, and they'd have to bring those changes back for full consideration. So, I mean, we're trying right now just to make sure we understand what they presented this evening clearly. Okay. Good. Do you want to ask more clarifying questions? You're certainly welcome to do that.
And the second pergola, is that has been presented already to you all before? Oh, I thought that was new tonight. Okay.
It's new for approval. It's been in all of the earlier plans.
Okay.
But we will have discussion where you can bring up that you have a concern that you want us to debate, and we can ask them questions, et cetera, et cetera. So if there aren't any other clarifying questions, I'd like to ask John for his staff report.
So my staff report focused on several elements for the design. Guideline A1, the town plan and focal points, and one of the analytical tools that I thought was very important was the fact that we are looking at a proposed plan with these pergolas, the stage and the utility boxes, that is different from the 1970s creation of the parking lot. And I think that the HPC made the decision in March to approve the plan as shown with what I consider to be a density of trees. Of course, now Eric is disagreeing, but with a density of trees that I thought would have an effect on the viewscape. But the truth is, of course, that the viewscape that we are considering to be the historically significant period of significance, et cetera, is the early 20th century. And I think that that's relevant because the 1970s version of City Dock has great views, but it is a parking lot. So that was A1. Something that we haven't really talked about tonight are views from the water. So how do these pergolas, how does the performance stage affect views from the water? How does the fountain affect views from the water? What will we see if in fact there are colored lights and we have water squirting up at eye level?
John,
that's really a joke.
Okay.
Sorry. But it's something to consider because it's very different. And so the views from the water with regard to the pergolas, I think that it is consistent. You have a roof structure that is going to be visually obstructive, But for the most part, especially the stage pergola, which will be prominent within water views, is essentially something that you can look through. You can look through that and through the other side, and that was emphasized in your presentation. And then finally, I focused on landscape design and materials, which, as has been mentioned earlier, I think are consistent with guidelines. They're elemental, they're traditional, they're metal, they're stone. They're appropriate, I think, for the space. Are they intrinsically Annapolis? No. Is the Pine Hall full spectrum brick choice Annapolitan? Well, it's recently Annapolitan. It's what we have Cornhill Street sidewalks done in. So is that an appropriate choice? I think it might be. So I recommended approval. Do you want me to get into conditions?
Yes.
Okay. So I recommended approval on the basis of this design that we're reviewing tonight being consistent with A1, A3, and C1. And I have requirements for future HPC applications to include the Maritime Welcome Center, revisions to flood barriers, all work associated with or in the vicinity of the Burtis House and the waterfront park of Prince George, which we haven't really reviewed. Also, approval is conditioned on an approved application for archaeology as required by the state or federal agencies. I haven't seen that, but I think it's moving forward, which I think is really good news. Approval is also conditioned on a separate application being required for design of cultural interpretation or any sculptural elements. We touched on that tonight, but we didn't really see the final decisions. So I think that's really in development. Is that correct? Yes. Right, okay. And then finally, I was hoping to see a little more detail on lighting for the pergolas or the fountain, just so that we could have a better idea of how those would look permanently or when the fountain is in use at night, for instance. I'm really hoping that we don't do colored lights. I'm really hoping we don't do colored lights and sort of a set computerized spray show that I've seen, for instance, at the Washington, D.C. wharf. And so those were my conditions.
Let me, because you raised it both in jest and now I think more seriously, does the commission have any legal authority over color, even in this regard? It seems like the limitation we have in controlling the color of what people paint their houses.
Well, we have paint colors that we do not control. I'm interested to see what the presenters say about it, and I think Mr. Reichel has already said that it's going to be clear light.
Yeah.
But some prankster might get in a colored light and just.
You mean city staff or somebody that can? Oh, okay. Does that conclude your report?
Yes. I have some late arrival public comments that I could read when we go to public comment.
Exactly. I thank you for bringing those and preparing them. But what our normal procedure is now the commissioners would ask Mr. Tower clarifying questions. If there was anything that they felt they needed to have stated more clearly or completely, this was the time to speak to him about that. Anyone have questions of the staff? Welcome, Ms. Gold.
Thank you.
I'm glad you could make it. Okay, well, if that's the case, then a number of the members of the public I see are present, and we appreciate their presence and their patience and their interest that's brought them here. And so we will open the public hearing at this time, and is the typical procedure for commissions such as ours, we'll ask you to come forward, state your name and your residence, and we would ask those in favor of the application to come forward first. If you haven't already signed in, would you please sign the sheet on the podium? Thank you.
You don't swear by it. The council swears by it. And you mean for the speaker? I'll get that.
Okay. Because we're a quasi-judicial board, we do ask that each person who speaks swear that they are presenting what, to their knowledge, to the best of their knowledge, is true and factual. Do so swear?
I do.
Thank you. Now, please introduce yourself.
Sure. My name is Mary Ewanson. I live at 139 Pinecrest Drive, Annapolis, 21403. And I am here representing United States Yacht Shows. I just wanted to speak to three things in favor. First, the flooding this week is a reminder how devastating it is to our city and to our businesses. And we are hosting the Annapolis Powerboat Show next week and the Annapolis Sailboat Show the following week. And we've been watching this flooding. We'd have had to close the gates if with some of this flooding. So we're anxious for something to get going for resilience. But I wanted to address the electric supply. I know there were a few photos that came up of what the electric supply looks like now. And I think it would have been everyone's preference that we could put it somewhere where, it's down on Prince George Street and we can't see it and it's not in the way and there'd be no structure in the middle of the park. But there is currently the birdhouse in the park, and there's also electric supply in the Harbor Masters building and on those panels. And they're fabulously beautiful. So I think we'll miss them terribly, but it's okay to have a few structures to replace them. And it's really important that the electricity is built to support what's coming next, not what's come before. And Bob Crane helped. He's my business partner at the boat shows, and he helped with the last round of electric renovations. And this design team has been talking to him and consulting and listening very carefully as they work toward a really good solution. And Bob couldn't be here tonight, but he just wanted me to express our gratitude for how well everybody's been working together on it. But also he said, because I asked him, because I know nothing about electricity, but
Neither
he
do
said that this design, it really does fit the needs of all the festivals and events and things that need to happen at City Dock, including, supporting boats that come in and dock and everything. So he said it is a good plan. He also would love for the structures to be somewhere else, but they have to be, somewhere near this plant. So we're very pleased with the process and the progress, and hope that once it's all approved, it gets going quickly.
Thank you. Our normal procedure at this time is just to ask if any commissioners would like to ask a clarifying question of the speaker. If there was anything that you thought needed a little more. All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else who wishes to speak in favor of this application? Please state your name and your residence, and make sure I think I saw you sign in, didn't I?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. My name is Janice Donner Rotner. I'm at 1248 Algonquin Road, Crownsville, and but I'm a native of Annapolis, and I just want to say that I am very much in favor of this plan, and basically, something needs to be done. I'm the daughter of Hillard Donner, who owned Mills Wine and Spirits from 1946 and until the sale in 2012. During that time, Mills was inundated by a flood called Isabel. In 2003, by a hurricane who put 5 feet of water in his store and lost $100,000 in damages and was not insured. Although the proposed plan to control flooding in Annapolis may not please everyone, it is something that needs to be accomplished sooner than later. Almost every day now in downtown Annapolis, it suffers from flooding. If the proposed plan is delayed now, the flooding will only get worse. The proposed amendments for these resilience project is what is needed to assure the downtown area is protected sooner than later. So I say, go for it.
Ms. Rotner, thank you for your testimony and taking the time to come and speak with us tonight. I neglected, since I'm still getting the rust off, did the testimony you just gave, to your knowledge, do you swear that it is true and factual?
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you. Are there any questions? Thank you for coming down tonight.
Sure.
Is there anyone else who wishes to speak in favor of the project? Okay, now we, of course, will take the testimony of those who are in opposition. And please remind you that the application tonight is actually very limited in scope. And I do ask, although there are only a few people here, and I'd like to be generous in the time that you have to speak and make your thoughts clear. We appreciate you sharing thoughts. Sometimes the people in opposition give us the best ideas of things that we need to pursue further. So with that said, anyone in opposition who would like to speak, please come forward.
Good evening, and thank you for the opportunity to speak. My name is Ed Hartman. I'm an attorney in Annapolis. I was born up the street, and I continue to practice in Annapolis, and I do so swear, as you would have requested at the end of my testimony, what I say will be true and factual.
I was going to ask you first before you gave testimony,
fair.
but that's okay.
That's fair.
So I will accept what you just swore. All right, thank you.
No problem. So I'm here on behalf of clients whose identity has remained confidential pursuant to agreement with the city for retaliatory concerns at the time that the complaints were raised. We raised substantive and procedural complaints in April of this year in writing, and an agreement was reached with the city whereby we provisionally and conditionally waived the right of appeal at that time to raise those substantive and procedural irregularities to the Circuit Court for Anne Arundel County, provided that the city would honor its obligations as set forth in the letter. And I will pass out copies of the letter so you have them. And we're not going to get into legal arguments here tonight. What I'm here to do is identify that my clients have standing, and I am here on their behalf, and we are putting on the record that this agreement has been breached by the city because they've chosen to abandon it in writing and told me that they no longer wish to abide by it, which restores our initial rights of appeal from April, which we intend to pursue.
Okay, Mr. Hartman, before you go further, just for the benefit for all the commissioners, particularly the new ones, this is an irregular proceeding, but I have talked to the Office of Law, and to my knowledge, everything that Mr. Hartman has shared with us is in fact true. The city knows what's happening here, and normally I would not allow someone to speak for unnamed individuals, but this is where we are. So, Mr. Hartman, please proceed.
Thank you. And that's really all I have to say. I'm going to pass out copies of the letters between my office and City Attorney Mike Lyles, with whom the agreement was reached on behalf of the city, and then his letter attempting to rescind that agreement. And then I've placed what I need to on the record. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there anyone else? Yes. And can the staff, John, can the staff see that the commissioners who are still attending remotely received this material?
Is that yours?
Yeah,
Well, I mean, of course.
Just scan it, yeah,
Right,
scan it,
I'll
make
scan
sure.
it and send it to them. And you know, I also have a note to send Eric the cultural landscape report.
Yeah, good. I think they want to see the actual thing. Please.
Hi there. Rachel Robinson, Historic Annapolis. I swear to tell the truth. I do not adhere to the strict pro or con of this application, but Historic Annapolis is supportive of this project with some questions, concerns, and criticisms. So good evening, everyone, and welcome to the new commissioners. I'm the Vice President of Preservation at Historic Annapolis. You may know that HA recently co-hosted a community listening session with the Ward 1 Residents Association to hear directly from property and business owners their questions and concerns about the ambitious and critical City Dock project. A record of those comments was shared with the Mayor, City Council, and Ms. Fogarty last week via email. Tonight, I have copies for all of you, and I can also share a PDF with staff. The thoughtful and broad array of comments includes concerns outside of preservation and your purview, but due to the enormity of this project, we think that the community raised important considerations such as cost and future maintenance.
Excuse me.
Yep.
I am going to have to insist that those are not matters within our purview, and we're well aware of those concerns. And if you'll share the document that you prepared, that will be adequate. Please make your comments pertinent to this application this evening.
I was getting there. Thank you.
Thank you.
Regarding today's application, I'd like to focus on a couple of concerns that are germane to tonight's application. Regarding what you're looking at that are amendments to the approval from March, we agree with many in the community who have commented that the fountain is too big. This amenity has become a major design feature, but perhaps a complex fountain is not something the city can afford or is capable of maintaining when it is not a necessary aspect of flood protection resiliency. The city has already shown its inability to operate the Southgate Memorial Fountain on Church Circle. HA also echoes the residents and business owners who have expressed concern for the removal of public restrooms at the location of the current Harbor Master Building at Craig Street. Since this amendment concedes that there is a need for a structure at the same site to provide utilities, why can't the addition of a second pergola include a universally accessible bathroom? If a new structure is needed on the site of a current structure, can't the project adaptively reuse the Harbor Master Building in part or full as conceived in the previous CDAC plan? I'd also like to say that I support Mr. Greeley's inquiries about the two sheds being architecturally disconnected or unrelated. And finally, I'd like to recommend to the commission to take the considerations that were submitted in writing by Mr. Tim Leahy and conditions for approval as recommended by staff. And I'll share these comments from the public. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. But I will observe for all present that a number of the issues that were raised are substantive issues. I believe they have been concerned. They are still being considered, rather. They're still being considered, but we have no authority to review and approve or disapprove what applicants present to us. So I ask you all to consider that as you consider the testimony that was just presented. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak in opposition? Oh, I think I see a familiar face.
Good evening. I raise my right hand and tell you I'm going to tell you the truth to the best of my knowledge, interest, and belief.
Thank you.
My name is Sharon Kennedy. I reside at 9 Randall Court, Annapolis, Maryland. Many people in this room know me, but some of the new faces do not. I just want to say thank you to all of you for your service. I served on this commission for 15 years. I know what it's like to sit in your seat. I know it's hard decisions you get asked to make. You're trying to do the best, both by the guidelines, the city, and the community. So thank you very much for all your thoughtfulness and your time and attention. I want to raise a couple of concerns. One is And I had written these comments before I listened, and that's why I like listening to the conversation before I make my comments. I'm concerned that, or I understand now that the lighting plan for the main fixtures were included in the March presentation, and so they're not really part of the packet of today because we're not revising, or they're not asking for revisions. But in today's packet is the fountain and the performance pergola, and they are going to have lighting components, and those are not included in these specifications. You should ask for them. You should not simply say, oh, I'm sure they'll get back to us, because lighting on that stage pergola is going to impact the view from the water to the dome. It's going to impact the view from Main Street out to the water. Those are the kind of details that are strictly in your purview. You should absolutely be asking for the details. You should not simply say, well, I'm sure we can administratively approve them. It's outside of the delegated authority of staff to approve that kind of stuff. So I think you guys got to stick your feet down and say, we need the information to make the right decisions. So on that side, I would say this is an incomplete application. The lighting per se on the pergolas do comply with C7 because it's a public space, and uplighting is only allowed for public buildings in the district. But you can't determine whether it complies with D30 without the specific information that they have not given you tonight. I think you should also require them, when they do that specificity of those lighting and its impact, ask them for the equivalent of the view shed analysis from the water and from Main Street when those things are lit at 11 o'clock at night. And that light is going up 8, 10, 12 feet. And what is that going to do to the view shed? I think that's important information for you to determine whether it complies with D30. The other thing I would say that is not compliant in this application tonight is the roof for the stage pergola. It violates both guidelines B8 and it violates guidelines D10B. Glass is not an appropriate use of roofing material in the historic district. It's just not. And the guidelines are clear. You should not approve that element. And finally, the last thing I'll say, having sat in your shoes, if you have concerns about whether or not those pergola design matches, or you have concerns you want to see more detail or different detail, continue the application. You're allowed to do that. You can say, we need more stuff. We're not ready to say no, but we're not ready to say yes. And you have a regular hearing in 10 days. On October 8th, they can come back with more information so you can make the kind of decisions that are compliant with the law, compliant with the guidelines, and in the best interest of the project. So that's what I would urge you to do.
Thank you for being so specific and helpful. And it's an honor, by the way, to sit in the chair that you occupied as the chair of this commission.
Talk to me in 5 years, Bill. It may feel a little different.
My current term runs out in less than 5 years, so I may not give it that long. But let me ask you for a little clarification. Can you read the
guideline? I don't have them with me. And believe it or not,
okay, the one on the glass.
Memorized.
So do you want me to read D30?
The glass. I'm concerned about the glass most of all.
That's B8 and D10B.
Boy, I have D30 ready.
Sorry.
Okay.
Well, while John's looking for that, does any other commissioner have a question of Ms. Kennedy for clarification? Okay. I'm going to do something slightly irregular, and if any of like the council or someone thinks that I'm out of line, please call my hand immediately. Ms. Fogarty, could those detailed information about lights be presented at the next meeting that we already have planned?
I'll get right back to you.
For those of you who don't know Ms. Kennedy, she has that mostly memorized. I'm surprised she couldn't just spout it to us.
Okay, but you want me to do that one, Sharon?
No, John,
Are you taking that away?
I'm taking that away.
I think you need to ask permission.
Thank you.
I think Sharon's going to read what she.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Chair,
Okay.
the roof is all
Wait, Ms.
designed.
Kennedy, let Ms. Fogarty.
It is all designed. We certainly can bring it in more detail. It's designed, it's in the initial application. We can certainly present it again on the 10th.
I just wanted to clarify what Travis just said, which is he's trying to figure out whether the lighting that is designed is actually in your application or not. You may already have all of this detail in the application, and Travis is trying to confirm that.
Okay, thank you, because my actions are going to be very dependent on whether you tell me that it's already someplace that I can get it. Ms. Kennedy?
Yep. So B8 guideline refers to roof shapes. Roof shapes on new buildings should visually relate to the roof forms and slopes of neighboring historic buildings. The predominant roof form in the historic district is the gable roof, and then it goes into a whole bunch of others. But
Okay.
the key language here is, it is a structure, it has a roof, it's supposed to relate to its neighborhood, and as currently designed, I would not say that's compliant. And D10B, also roofing materials. Roofing materials for proposed new buildings should relate to the overall design of the building and should follow the prevalent roofing materials of the neighborhood.
Ms. Kennedy, I have a question that you
Yes.
may have anticipated. The most dominant element to me at the city dock is the field house.
Is the what?
Is the field house. It does not have a gable roof, and it looms over everything. This, I think, is a very modest addition.
It's an interesting point. I'm not gonna, I think you can make that argument. I mean, my argument would be more that we're talking about the historic district, which doesn't include the field house.
Well, but it certainly
I
affects.
concede your point. There's a very modern roof form nearby that's very prevalent.
Thank you.
It's a reasonable argument.
Okay, thank you. Your argument is very sound also.
There you go. Merit on both sides.
That's
why
right.
the
So
tough
that's
decision's
why we're here, is to
Yep.
decide.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dan.
Pardon?
Left it over there.
I said two things can be true.
Yes. Seeing that I think everyone present has spoken or is part of the team, I conclude the public hearing at this time.
Do you not want me to read elements of the public comment that was submitted?
Oh, yes, I'm sorry, but that's not really, we're not continuing to take testimony, we're
Okay.
hearing from you. Okay, John.
So these are really distillations. We had 8 public comments. Essentially, 4 were not in favor, and 4 were in favor. The 4 that were not in favor tended to be, let's say, directed toward the broader design. And there were some suggestions. One was a suggestion for accommodations for the elderly, people with disabilities, young families with children. They believe that possibly parking at Hillman Garage and then walking to the city dock would be difficult for those who have additional burdens of mobility. Because of that, and this is from Philip Smith, who lives at 112 Duke of Gloucester, he is strongly opposed to the redevelopment plan as presented. We also had, and this is not really on subject, but ancillary from Winnie Ferguson, not support the current plan for the Maritime Welcome Center, fountain, and stage. And we also had that from Sandy Huffer, who lives on Prince George Street. Rick Lober wrote that the fountain should be scaled back. Entertainment venue is way too modern, should be in keeping with historic Annapolis architecture. So, getting into the comments in favor, Keith Cyphers wrote that he supported the planned renovations to City Dock. And then specifically, here's a longer one. We support the proposed amendments to Phase 1 for the resiliency in the park. The proposed additions to the park to include the water feature, pergolas, and necessary utilities will provide a community space for concerts, conversations, and appreciation of what will become Annapolis's unique gathering place, rather than just a place to walk through. And so that was, ironically enough, submitted by Karen Brown and Patrick Brown. So I didn't know there was another Karen Brown.
I was just going to ask for clarification.
Right, exactly. So Shelley Rowe, is that Shelley?
Shelley Rowe.
Shelley Rowe. Okay, it's Rowe, not Rao. Former chair of the Transportation Advisory Board wrote yesterday, the two utility pergolas are necessary elements for this work to proceed. The fountain embodies engagement with water in a fun, accessible way. As a member of the board of the Annapolis Symphony Orchestra, we hope for the opportunity to play in this new space and bring symphonic sound to people who may not otherwise have that exposure.
Thank you, John. Are there any questions? John wasn't clear as he read those. Okay. Mr. Bird, do you have an answer to that question about the lighting?
You have an answer, Travis?
The lighting is referred to in the drawings that are in this approval package for HPC. It's actually...
Yeah, let's go ahead and get that so people...
What's physically included in the document package that you have for approval refers to the approximate size and type of light fixture. It does not include additional photometrics. I know that was one material objection I believe one of the speakers had, was to understand what those lighting levels are. I know as a part of the design process, we have a very nice dimming system being incorporated into these lights that are mounted under these pergolas. So you do have in your approval set of documents, specifically on the pergola by the stage, it refers to a linear LED around the perimeter. The pergola by the electrical building, it refers to sconces on the columns.
Thank you. Okay. At this point, since the public hearing is closed,
I know someone else just came to testify. Is the hearing closed?
it was closed, but since it's one person and we're trying to get as much public input as we can, and whether the person wants to speak in favor or against, I would, with the approval of the other commissioners, shall we hear this? Yes.
Sorry I was late. I apologize. My name is Matt Fleming. Thank you. So my name is Matt Fleming. I live in Parole, but I'm here on behalf of the Resilience Authority of Annapolis and Anne Arundel County.
Say that again, please.
I'm Matt Fleming. I'm here on behalf of the Resilience Authority of Annapolis and Anne Arundel County. I'm the Resilience Authority Director.
And do you swear that the testimony you're about to give is, to the best of your knowledge, true and factual?
Yes.
Thank you.
So just as background, we were created in 2021 by the city in Anne Arundel County to oversee, coordinate, implement projects to mitigate the effects of climate change. We bring together experts in finance, infrastructure, climate adaptation to a single group that secure funding and help manage projects on behalf of the city and the county. I want to thank the leadership of my board, and then certainly thank, with all the insight and the thoughtfulness of the designers, the project managers within both the county and the city. In the last 18 months, we've been able to secure about $43 million to help bring projects to completion. And that certainly doesn't happen without all the great work of the city and the county. So I believe the last time I had a chance to speak to this group, maybe it was virtual or in person, we spoke in favor of the City Dock Resilience Project and the work of the Action Committee. I specifically noticed the work of the Action Committee to develop a community-led design that was both guided by science and that understood the urgency of action and that incorporated the margin of risk in the design. During my time prior to the role I'm in now, I spent 25 years as the coastal manager for the state of Maryland. In that role, we worked with all the other coastal states and evaluated infrastructure, large-scale climate infrastructure projects. And those were the things that we looked for in a large-scale infrastructure project. Another element that we evaluated, in addition to those I mentioned earlier, was not only about the ability of a project to protect the community, but also its ability to connect the community. Projects provide multiple benefits: cooling, absorbing, protecting, connecting. They'll provide a greater return on investment than these single-use projects. So I want to commend again the work of the city, the Action Committee and the city, looking at projects that are, just resilient projects are more about roads, bridges. It's about the people, the houses, the communities for whom this quality infrastructure is a lifeline for better, safer communities that have access to these social areas. So in a community like the city of Annapolis, where space is at a premium, multiple uses and public amenities is in high demand, the dual purpose approach that the city dock the design of the city dock is worth noting. So again, I would like to commend the work of the city, the work of the Action Committee, speak in favor of this project on behalf of the Resilience Authority, the Resilience Finance Authority of Annapolis and Anne Arundel County, and I think we have an opportunity to see something that is not only practical but also is beautiful in the approach. So, thank you.
Thank you for bringing your expertise and sharing your opinion with us, but do you have anything to say specifically about the application and its very narrow focus that is before us tonight? You can say no.
I'll probably say no.
Okay.
No.
All right. Just want to be clear. Anybody else have a question to the speaker? All right. Thank you, sir, for sharing your thoughts with us. Okay. Normal procedure at this time is that we would ask the commissioners to individually give their opinion about the application before us and indicate whether they support it or whether they have issues they want to have addressed before they could support it. And I would ask the council, since the judge has put us in this new situation, can you prepare a draft of the findings? I appreciate that. And for the new commissioners, I'll just tell you that we had a recent decision remanded by the judge so that findings would be written that would clearly identify the individual commissioner and the reasons for their vote, yay or nay. And so I'm saying that especially for the new commissioners and the commissioners that weren't present as we went through this at the last meeting, that when you finally vote, you say, or in the discussion, you say clearly, this is why I think we should approve or disapprove this matter. It's really I shouldn't say more, it would be inappropriate from the chair. So, does anyone like to begin the discussion?
I'll give it a shot.
Okay.
I am somewhat wavering both ways on whether it's approvable or not. The lighting to me, and I'm going to have to go back and look, I don't believe has been clearly defined the way I believe it should be. And I just had another item come up with the presentations that were made and the discussions that were made, is we're building this one pavilion with a glass roof, and we keep talking about how there's going to be performances in it. The Annapolis Orchestra just said that they'd like to perform in it. Has there been any acoustical work to look at that and to see if it's not just a dead space and that it's actually appropriate for the performances that we see being done in there? Right now, it's a hard glass roof. There's a lot of reflectivity in that acoustically. The back and the front, and I guess the sides as well, are completely open. So the sound is not directed in any way. Now, I know there are ways to install things for performances to get a shell type situation, but it should be planned for ahead of schedule and not after. Is that something anyone can respond to? Give me a reason to hope.
Yes, your point is correct. This is not really an acoustical stage. It's meant to be performances that are amplified with speakers and a PA system that would not rely on the roof to project the sound out to the crowd. So that's...
Okay, so it's not really appropriate for the Annapolis Orchestra.
I can't really say.
Council, please advise me if I seem to be overstepping. Ms. Rowe is a close personal friend, and my wife and I have been encouraged by her to be interested in the symphony and attend performances. If she, on the record, said that they wanted to perform there, I take it that it's satisfactory for their needs. They're just looking for places to perform, to tell you the truth, and they'll deal with difficulties. But it's a good point. I'm not sure it's a point that we have authority to base our decision upon.
Well,
I can say, as a very experienced architect and dealing with lots of different types of structures acoustically, is that this will be outdoor space, and the sound will not in any way really echo or reverberate off of the glass roof. It's going to be open generally. So whatever's appropriate for outdoor music would be appropriate in this location. We're fortunate in that we have relatively low buildings around it and a lot of green space and trees to help absorb some of the sound. So I don't think you'll get any more echo, and a lot less echo than we get currently with other performances that are out there.
And I appreciate that. And as the architect, I know how those things in many buildings I've used is dealt with as well. And we could end up with a space that with non-projecting sound ends up completely dead, and you lose the liveliness of the performances.
Right, and outdoor space tends to be that way because it just travels forever.
Is that what we want down here? Becomes the question. Is this actually what is desired down here?
I think that's the beauty of the outdoors.
So you are still considering your decision?
I am still considering my decision. I'll wait for others.
Yeah. Ms. Golder, do you want to weigh in?
Sure. So, after much consideration and deliberation, I feel you looking at me, so I knew I needed to turn it on. So with much consideration and deliberation, as we've sat through these hearings and presentations, resiliency, flooding is a significant component in part and would be a considerable part of my focus for this evening and this this topic and presentation. I would echo the comments and recommendation in the staff report, and hopefully that will satisfy our council's need to earmark each part of what we need to do to satisfy the judge's desires. So I would echo, instead of restating, I will echo every single point that has been identified in the staff's report and recommendation. And so it is with that that I would say yes for and vote for the approval based on what has been outlined in the staff's report and recommendation.
Thank you. Mary, Brendan?
Clarification, this, the designs that we saw tonight are 50% CDs, is that correct?
I'm not sure.
I mean, these aren't finished drawings, and would they be coming back for 100% CD approval?
They're permit drawings.
Excuse me?
They are drawings ready for permit, so we consider them to be 100%.
Ah, okay.
Do you want to offer your comment now? You are duly sworn and authorized to participate and cast a vote. If you can abstain if you wish.
I think, given my getting used to the system, I I abstain.
Okay.
Is the voting for the pergola and the fountain together?
Yes.
It's one vote.
Yes, one.
Okay. Well, then I will abstain too, having been sworn in yesterday, you know.
Okay. All right. Brendan?
I'm loath to put any brakes on this process as it moves forward, given the sort of thought and care that's gone into it. If I had to vote on the current structure tonight, if that's what it ends up being, I would be inclined to say yes. That said, I am curious to see whether there's a staff response to the question brought up by the building materials. Because I know we've seen this, I didn't catch it, I didn't see it, but it does seem like the code of this commission does suggest that perhaps it's not compliant, and that worries me. And I'm worried about even speaking that worry, because I, as much as everybody else in this room, want this project to move forward on schedule. But I am concerned about that.
Well, would you like me to read it? I think that was a very strict interpretation.
Okay.
So let me see here if I've got this correct. Okay, so I'll just, what Ms. Kennedy read, D10A, roofing materials additions. So this is one element. Roofing materials used on additions to historic buildings should be compatible with the materials used on the existing structure. Roofing material of a proposed addition should match the roofing of the existing building. For example, where existing roofing is slate, new roofing should be slate or metal, mixing wood or asphalt, etc. Roofing materials, new buildings. Roofing for proposed buildings should relate to the overall design of the new building and should follow the prevalent roofing material of the neighborhood, which the glass does not, but anyway, new buildings in the historic district should not be roofed with asphalt shingle. And really, that's it. It doesn't say no glass. Now, I think it's also important to understand that this is a new building that isn't trying to echo a historic structure. And we do look at new buildings in a somewhat different light. Yeah. I didn't analyze this as a new building. I looked at it as an element of the park. But for new buildings, they don't have to echo a colonial building. In fact, I think we hurt ourselves when we do that as a matter of practice and don't allow for new designs.
John, could I ask a clarifying question?
Mm-hmm. You're sort of out of order, but I'll allow it.
Passage that I just heard you read.
Mike. Got to get you on the record.
Just to clarify, John, the passage that we heard is an architectural standard that relates to roofs on buildings, right? On new buildings.
Yes.
Right? Mm-hmm. Okay. What we have on this building is a roof that is not made of glass. What we have on this pergola is a roof made of glass. Is there a standard that talks about an appropriate material to put atop a shade structure or a pergola?
Well, that's a good distinction. This is a landscape element. It's not a building.
Right. A landscape, okay, yeah. Fair enough. Thank you. I think that does clarify it for me anyway.
Thank you. Good point.
So, to our staff, John, based on what you've just stated, which was my interpretation as well, I don't think in your recommendation, if you were to hone in on that it would change your staff report and write-up based on your interpretation that is not as strict as the one that we did here. Because you see it as a pergola and not a building, and the fact that it would not be interpreted as strictly as we heard tonight. Is that fair?
Well, I think we have to judge it on its own design merits and how they relate to the greater area. However, just keeping in mind, there are two historic structures, two structures from the period of significance in the immediate vicinity. And one is the Burtis House, and the other is the building that houses Sophie's Crepes. So it relates to the newer architecture because it is new design itself. That's in my opinion. Now, am I a big advocate of its shape? No. And have I restored glass ceilings? Yes. And they get filthy. So I definitely have hesitation with that material. I restored the Secretary of the Treasury's private entrance on the Treasury, which was a glass awning. And, it just collects a lot of debris. So over time, it's going to have a different look. It will have a greater opacity due to dirt because, as we know, Annapolis, or at least I don't know that there's a division yet that is devoted to cleaning glass on pergolas, but there might be after this.
So my question was more specific to, would that change based on what you heard tonight? Would that change your staff recommendation?
No, I was aware of what it was. Would it have been my choice? No, but I'm not exactly sure how you have a covered performance space that is trying to let in light. And to an extent, I also think that we could rely on the experience of the designer. Because we are all trying to achieve something that is elevated and useful.
Okay. So that was what I wanted to make sure, is that it would not change his recommendation, therefore impact my vote and the way I was leaning. Thank you for that.
Okay. So are you inclined to vote approval?
Yes, my vote has not changed. He just clarified what my interpretation of the testimony was.
Okay.
And based on his clarification, I would vote yes.
Okay. I'll try to be succinct, and those of you who know me well know that that's a difficult challenge for me, but I'll try to do my best. I think, as a number of you have observed, this is a very important project that fundamentally is based on our need for resiliency to protect the historic structures of Annapolis. I find that the concern over the glass is, given a liberal interpretation of the guidelines, is really insignificant. Tell me what historic building one can occupy in any level other than the roof and see the roof is glass on the proposed pergola. And I am influenced very much by the fact that, despite what others may feel is relevant, the fact that we have the field house looming over this area virtually makes me amenable to almost anything that is well designed. And finally, I would say that having traveled somewhat around the world, even the oldest cities that I visited have modern buildings that actually accentuate the significance and distinctiveness of the historic structures that share similar public spaces. And finally, in all the years that I've served on various commissions, I have found Mr. Tower and the other staff that I have dealt with to be consummate professionals. And if he's looked at this and he recommends approval, I'm going to support that position, and I also would vote to approve it tonight. Any further discussion or comments that the commissioners want to share? You good? Ready to vote?
No, I think it's clear that I'm the only one who's hung up on it. So there's not much point in pursuing it, because if there isn't a sense among the commission that it's something that's significant, then like I said, if we take the structure as is and we put it to a vote tonight, I will vote yes. So there's not, yeah.
Okay. I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to vote in favor of the proposed design.
Second.
Second. Any discussion? All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Abstain.
Okay, I think we have 3 abstentions. Yeah, Mr. Williams abstained. But
Conditions?
Pardon?
Conditions?
Oh, thank you, John. Okay. I think we need a clarification on the motion, that we are supporting the conditions in the staff report. I think most of us said that we were, but we need that to be part of the formal motion. So would there be a motion to that nature?
I make a motion that we accept the application as submitted with the conditions given in the staff report.
Second.
Do you want me to hand these to you and read them?
No, we're not. We're not going to go through the reading of them any longer. I think we've addressed them thoroughly. We have them. The public has access to them. They'll be recorded in our findings. So thank you. But anyway, all in favor of the motion on the floor to approve the application with the conditions recommended by the staff, please signify by saying aye.
Thanks for coming.
Aye.
Aye.
Yes. If there's a quorum established, then a majority of those present and voting. Thank you. Thank you for that. For the record, I'd like to make it clear that there was a motion that was made, seconded, and voted on. That motion is dead and superseded by the motion to recommend approval with the conditions supplied in the staff report. Okay. John, did you have some announcements and update on violations you wanted to share before we conclude?
Well, I want to make sure that everyone's aware that we have a work session with the Planning Commission scheduled for the 3rd in these chambers. Is that not correct, Eileen?
That is correct, and it will be live.
Okay, and
in person.
I'm going to request if some plans or material can be sent out for review, that would, I think, be very helpful prior to. Other announcements. Well, let's see. We have three new commissioners, and I didn't really get to welcome everybody, but welcome all of you who haven't been here a year yet. Wow. Yes. Well, Cecil. No, hold on. Cecil Cummings. It's not Cecile, it's Cecil.
Yeah.
Not here.
Right. Someone had to represent at Bourbon and Blazers, so.
Yeah. I would like to ask if the staff can see that there are nameplates for the new commissioners by the next meeting.
They won't come in time.
Okay. Then at the next meeting, and if those who are participating remotely are still tuned in, I would ask each of you at the next meeting to introduce yourself briefly, and we'll try to get you so that everybody feels comfortable and familiar with you and everything. I didn't do that this evening because of the whole nature of tonight's meeting. So, the 3rd is a Tuesday or a Wednesday?
Thursday.
It's a Thursday?
I think it's the day after Rosh Hashanah.
Okay, and this is not a meeting where there would be any proposed votes for approval?
That is correct. This is a work session. We scheduled it on a planning commission hearing night because actually your agendas are a little bit tighter right now, so they had the opportunity in this, to schedule it for that evening. And it's, I think they're always tremendously productive when we bring the Planning Commission and the Historic Preservation Commission together, because they're different perspectives and we get the advantage of the wealth of your knowledge.
I would agree with that statement, and I will be, in the nature of full disclosure, I have tickets to the first Orioles playoff game, and if it does...
I'll take them.
Well, no, John, if it occurs on that night, I will not be present. But I think it's supposed to be on Tuesday. Well, that still remains to be seen. Anyway, you will not be present? Okay, I think I understand why. And oh yeah, and believe me, you have my full support. Okay, if there's no other business before us this evening, I'll take a motion for
Motion to adjourn.
Adjourn. Is there a second? Second. Any objections? Okay, all in favor of the motion to adjourn, signify by saying aye. Aye. All right. I haven't done this in a long time. We're adjourned.